Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back, loyal viewers. I'm Kerry, the nosy housefrau. Who dares disturb my slumber? In my perfect isolation, I haven't much felt a need to chime in on anything. As you know, given the state of the world, and perhaps my world, I haven't been inspired. Or if I did, a tweet would suffice. As it is, I'm aware that I know way too much about people I dislike online. I just do. I know a lot about people I adore, but the fact remains, if I was stopped on the street and asked about Onision, the person approaching me might be shocked to discover my knowledge of that guy spans over a decade. To sum it up, I cannot do calculus, but I know the I'm a banana song. Lately I see drama and I think, well, this one I can't add anything to. A lot of reasonable people say what I'm thinking. Drama gets halfway around the world before I even get my pants on in the morning, as the saying kinda goes. But of course, getting my pants on can take up to an hour and sometimes requires assistance. But enough about shady pines. I just haven't been inspired to join in. Then an incident like this one comes along and I go from radio silence to chomping at the bit and pacing to have my say, to the point where I make a point not to listen to what anyone else is saying, lest I cloud my very important input. So here it is. Last year, Jeffree Star received backlash when it was exposed that on a trip to Vegas with Trisha Paytas, he was that person who trash talks people the moment they leave the room. Not a big surprise to everyone, but even people he calls friends, he would do that too. It's my opinion that Jeffree Star's idea of a friend is still an employee, and that's probably where a lot of his problems stem from. And apparently, his other employees, sometimes before those relationships sour with mistreatment or Jeffree's paranoia, they sign on for that kind of, air quotes, friendship too. But let's back up. You may recall last year this guy named Tab made a video about how Jeffree was trash-talking Trisha in Vegas, and he wasn't comfortable with it. He let Trisha know in DMs. I'll link Dustin Dailey's video on that below because he has the DM receipts. But Trisha responded thanking Tab and saying that some of the things Jeffree said right to her face was why she left early. So it's not like she was completely unaware of this disloyalty. I will say, regarding Tab's video, I think if your heart's really in the right place, normally you don't tell people awful things other people are saying about them, and you certainly don't do it publicly because that will exacerbate the humiliation and highlight it and point out things they may not want to have discussed. But in this case, I could see why he would do it, because he might have thought she thought they had this solid friendship and it was so disloyal and left a bad feeling with him. So fast forward a year later, and it's clear Trisha and Jeffree are on the outs still. Both admit she's not taking his calls, and honestly, who wouldn't get this? I mean, to say I dislike Trisha could be a bit of an understatement. That's not the focus of this video. Although I personally wouldn't want to be in the same room with her shrill voice, Jeffree went to Vegas with her. Oh, sorry, he took her to Vegas. We'll get to that. But this isn't about her behavior, because in this instance, they're friends, and she was decent to this guy, even bringing him gifts he mocked. So it's natural that she didn't take his call, because there's not much he can say to apologize for something like that, behaving in a way no adult should. It wasn't an accident that he made fun of her, and it wasn't a lapse in judgment, because his judgment was always highly flawed. Tasing people, grabbing people inappropriately. You have to have a judgment to fall back from in order for it to be a lapse in judgment. No. Once the Jeffree veil is lifted, you can't unsee, even in the face of his charity work, that it's his nature and his way of life to be vicious, at least privately. So what can he say to Trisha? In my opinion, she knew he was calling to make things right, not to be remorseful. Big difference. If he was truly sorry, he'd understand why she wasn't taking his calls. He wouldn't be so dismissive of the pain he caused her, and perhaps that would have prompted him to even write to her and ask Shane to be the carrier pigeon. I know it's probably something generational, but yes, in that circumstances, I might take out my feathered quill and scribble my remorse on parchment, putting the family coat of arms seal right in wax so that this person got the message that I was aware of what I did wrong and how I was going to change. Now, apparently, he claims he contacted her even though she's not taking his phone call, so I have to assume maybe that was in a DM. But I don't get why people do this. I said I'm sorry, so you are now the person in the wrong if you don't accept that apology. That's kind of what he does. He's like, well, I said I was sorry, and I'm Jeffree Star, so move on. Look how fast Jeffree seemed to think that she should let it go. He certainly let it go, and he wrote it off as Trisha's flaw. It's his tweets that prompted this video. And here's one of them where you can see his dismissiveness. He says, "You've ignored all of my messages and texts for months, yet want to have an internet circus with an audience? No, thank you. Love you, girl. You can call or text me anytime." This was in response to Trisha's saying why, if you didn't want to be involved in the drama, why is he speaking your name in the video on your behalf? I mean, it sure did look to a lot of people like this guy was a Jeffree puppet, right? And that's his response to her. If Jeffree Star's life is a circus, he made it that way. He's reaping what he circused, because when Trisha was being told all of the things he said about her, that's because he had been the dang ringleader. It's my opinion that Jeffree Star is never so phony as when he's pretending to enjoy the company of women. And since we're keeping this a raw 100, I think if we look at this with our eyes wide open, Jeffree has only ever been nice to Trisha because of Shane Dawson. He tolerated her. He didn't like her. And this tweet I just read is particularly unfair because it's not Trisha who made this public on her own. Jeffree's hairdresser, Hair by Jay, did this. This is the guy who does Jeffree's wigs, by the way. And according to Trisha, he did Trisha's hair, and she just kind of inserted this in there. Like, he charged her $1,000 more than she expected, but that was fine. She's not about money. And my jaw dropped. So many questions. $1,000 more? What was the base price? He says he makes these himself, and I must know, are they synthetic? This is huge for me. Like, without going into an entire seminar, because I'm very learned in this field, as someone whose hair doesn't grow entirely out of their own head, I know a thing or two about augmented hair. And if those non-monofilament wigs are handmade synthetics the way they seem, $1,000 or more means you got effed more than when you couldn't afford to pay the pizza guy, if you know what I mean. Okay, I'm poor. People expect my hair to maybe look a little bit like a Halloween mishap, but not Jeffree's. What is he paying for those out-of-the-box looking cosplay atrocities? Wake up and smell the elephant plop in your own big top, Jeffree. But back to Hair by Jay. This guy is something else. In a recent rant, he went off on Trisha Paytas in defense of Jeffree Star, and I mean off. You may have already seen the videos because they're all over, but I'll link Trisha's video where she cries over it. She actually has herself sobbing while watching it. And then Sesh has a video, and I think the clips are in there, also in Dustin's, but you can listen to the clips without hearing the crying. But what this guy said about Trisha was horrendous. I mean, he was so angry, so aggressive, and talking about her skin, her weight, her hair, like just going off on her. And then saying she should be grateful to Jeffree, that she was on a private plane and Jeffree paid for everything. Again, Trisha is not an employee, and she didn't go there for what she could get materially. She lives well all the time and has her own money. So it says a lot about Jay that he feels a person should take any kind of treatment if it comes with a nice view and prime rib. It doesn't work that way, Jay. I could interview kindergartners with a better grasp of scruples than this. And I'm perturbed that people were tweeting Jeffree Star saying Jay was mean. Jay was mean to Trisha. He said mean things. He was not mean. He was criminal. He went beyond the pale. That's why we're here. This guy threatened Trisha in no uncertain terms, physically threatened her by saying she should watch herself because he beats people's asses. She was afraid of his threats, of course, and those are a crime. It was alleged he went by her house. I don't know if that's 100% true, but apparently his black car was driving by. I don't even know what he drives, but I did notice on his Instagram he has pictures of himself decked out in head-to-toe Louis Vuitton in a Bentley. I wonder whose Bentley that could be, because that's quite a hairdresser's salary to drive a Bentley. And he likes, does he like materialism? He's got pictures of himself holding money. He's got pictures of himself saying, don't kid yourself, I've got the money because I have an attitude. I don't have an attitude because I have money. And like really shallow, insipid pictures with captions. Below I will link Nick and Dustin's video on this. They had a good conversation. Nick Snyder and Dustin Dailey. the first couple of drama, my favorite social media power couple. Now those are two men who love and appreciate women, just not in that way. Regarding the threats, once again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I understand a basic law it seems a lot of people miss. So let me remind everyone, especially Jay, in most states you do not need to physically assault someone to be brought up on charges of assault. That's not the definition, just hitting someone. Very often, and this is true in the state of California, people like Jay think that they can just threaten someone like they are in a penitentiary. Then they are flabbergasted when they find themselves in front of a judge facing a year in prison. It happens on the daily. People are in court asking their lawyers, how can I be facing a year in prison? I just made some mean comments and I didn't even do anything. I just said stuff. Because you threatened bodily harm that made someone afraid, and under California Penal Code 422 PC, threatening bodily harm is a criminal offense, you empty-headed, violent numpty. Do yourself and everyone else a favor and pick up a damn book while you're doing your time. You do not get to speak to people in this way. And regardless of what I think about Trisha Paytas, I will not be silent in the face of this. Good people need to speak up and say, no, this is social media, not San Quentin. You do not get to threaten someone no matter what you think of them. Jeffree's tweet about this really bothered me. He said, I have personally apologized to Trisha Paytas several times last year about Vegas and she never responded, which is her right. I respect it, and what happened is between us. Don't drag me into new drama, not interested. What someone else says does not represent me. Well, that's where Jeffree is wrong. Because, again, here we see the lines of employee and friends conveniently changing for him. He's blurring them. Jay is your employee, Jeffree. When he commits a crime and you still employ him in your big top, that's not Trisha or anyone else dragging you into something. That's Jay and your complacency to his criminal behavior. Why would you even need to sleep on giving that kind of person a pink slip? That's not an agree to disagree situation. And I've already apologized. Get over it isn't your best look. Now everyone is asking, where is Shane Dawson and why is Ryland being nice to Jeffree? There are people, one aforementioned in this very room, who don't even like Trisha, but they're making videos denouncing the rant about her. And this is where friendship and business collides, isn't it? Jeffree pulled into Shane's life with a Brinks truck full of gold bullion and a bright future before they fell from grace like two lead balloons. So it stands to reason that those ties are bound. And they may have gotten stronger when they were both exposed hard last year and their public images plummeted almost simultaneously. In the Venn diagram of Shane's friendships, Trisha and Jeffree are in different circles, with him in the middle. Now this really is where it gets complicated. Healthy, functional friendships include a lack of insecurity and giving your friends the latitude to engage with whomever they choose, even if that's a person who's not your cup of tea, even if it's someone who's at odds with you. You can't require a rigid allegiance from your friends. This is what the room looks like when you invite only perfect people to your party who consider you numero uno bestie. Ooh, we'll save on the DJ. But where the real complication comes in is that nothing can be completely unconditional. And I think this is something that a lot of us have not reconciled with. Yes, you want to have unconditional love, but there is a line that cannot be crossed when it comes to alliances you can accept within your circle. In other words, if someone is truly cruel to you, you will take issue if your friends are cozying up with them and seem to have no problem with the offense. Imagine if, in fact, through the magic of technology, you get to see them yucking it up and publicly lifting up this person like they are a national treasure when they've spoken about you as though you are a joke that has no value as a human being. No one would find themselves completely okay with that. We would all wonder, why aren't you mad that I'm hurt? The way I would be mad if it were you. The way I would defend you. In this case, Trisha is valid taking issue with it, especially since she's defended Shane even when she knew he had done things impossible to defend. We could be here all day on that one, but that's the history of her loyalty to him. Shane has tested the waters of coming back to YouTube by dipping his toe in Ryland's work. It hasn't been well received because people have better memories than anyone expected apparently, and I think he's waiting for more water to pass under the bridge. As an aside, I have wondered why he hasn't spoken about Eugenia. This is relevant because he's not talking about something we're all seeing happening right in front of our eyes. I have a friend who happens to be a well-known celebrity. I'm not bragging. Normally I'd drop the name. It's not a huge secret, but my back hurts and I'm tired of bending over to pick up all the names I drop. But for the purpose of this conversation, I will tell you, Shane followed this person on social media and said nice things about them and liked them. So I called her. I asked her to please reach out to him in DM. We had a long conversation because it's something she knows a lot about. And I asked her if she would, if she would consider doing that. I can't tell you how difficult this is for me to do. I don't do things like this. In fact, I never even contact somebody directly, but I sent him a DM as well. I said, this is bigger than all of us. This would go a long way to retribution. Please do something, and that's what really matters. So I extended myself. I mean, I'm somebody who, I don't even take pictures with celebrities because I'm not comfortable asking for things in general. But so she did, and put it delicately, and she asked him if he could or was doing anything, and even though it's none of all of our business, we're worried. And he didn't respond, not to her, not to me. Now, I'm not judging him on that alone, because there's a lot of people reaching out to him, I'm sure, and I know he's going through some stuff. But I gotta tell you, it bothers me because of what we're all watching. Yes, Shane is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be public about what he's doing behind the scenes, but shouldn't we know that? I mean, using his platform publicly is what would make a difference, and he's used it before. Shouldn't we all know his thoughts on this? He made a video on it. So he could be vocal about saving his friend. We all know her mother does her best to thwart any attempts to intervene. And I really would like to know, if anything, he's done that. What a long way it would go if he didn't enable or take part or followed up on his video. Instead of just lobbing her softballs, do something to save a life. So as far as I'm concerned, if Shane won't use his platform to save someone's life, why would he care about anyone's hurt feelings? Even Trisha's. And here is some food for thought. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard Trisha say she loves Shane because he's non-judgmental and he never tries to change her. He accepts her as she is. Well, couldn't it be that he accepts her as she is because he doesn't care who she is? Maybe she's not important enough for him to put the focus off of himself onto the finer details of who Trisha is. Maybe she is someone he adores in small doses. She stood him and his family up for dinner, and he forgave her instantly. Maybe it's because he's a great guy. Or maybe it's because he expects that from her, he wasn't surprised, and she wasn't really that essential to the dinner. She wasn't missed. Could still have a good time without her. Well, if you've listened this far, I so appreciate you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to having this conversation with you. I look forward to your thoughts. And thank you very much to my patrons who have stood by me, even through the Rona. You mean more to me than I can ever tell you. So thank you, everybody. And until next time, Hausfrau out. Do 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 do.